Welcome to another episode at Bucket List Coach Web Show Live, coming to you live from beautiful San Diego, Kansas City Barbecue, and we'll be right back. Well, hello. We got Meredith Jordan in the house, and just stay tuned, and we will introduce her here in a bit. So my name is Cindy Lee, originally from Northern California. I reside in Southern California now. My aviation story started at age 16, living by Travis Air Force Base, seeing the big airplanes fly right over my parents' house. And I've been a Top Gun podcaster for the last 5 years. And welcome my guest, Meredith Jordan. How are you?
I am great, Cindy. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, let's talk a little aviation, and then we'll go into your book.
Very good.
What's your aviation story?
My aviation story is that I got to interview most of the guys that worked, that were in the Navy, that flew for Top Gun, the movie, the first one. And what a great thing that was. They're amazing.
And so let's talk a little further about your story with this book.
Well, the book took almost 2 years. I interviewed 90 people, including all the different pilots, and the context for this, was how they made the movie. But it's really the first time that you have pilots participating in a movie like this. So it's just this incredible story, as you know, and I think that's part of the reason the movie was so magical, is it really did stuff nobody done to that point.
Can you turn up your volume just a tad?
Okay, how's that?
Oh, much better. So let's talk a little further of what this book includes.
Well, the making of the movie is an amazing film story, because very few movies live as long as this one. So when you go back, remember, this is 1986 that this movie comes out, and a lot of great movies came out that year. You have Stand By Me, you have so many. Well, guess what? Top Gun's the only one they're still coming to see, and that was true before the great sequel.
So anything else? We got about 10 more minutes here on your segment. What would you like to add that people?
Oh, okay, because you had told me to pause periodically, so I was just waiting. So no, I'll tell you the whole story. I mean, this book, I write this book during the pandemic. And so I was looking for something to do, and I'd collected enough string to know it was a really amazing story. I talked to Bill Bottolato, the executive producer, and about just that we met. And he actually, at the time, he was like, I don't know that it's really worth a book. And so I believed it was, but I moved on to whatever it was. And then we reconnected, and nothing like a pandemic to start looking around. By then I had a copy of Tom Cruise's contract for the movie. And so I had collected string over a number of years. And then Bill's remarkable. He's definitely worth interviewing if you haven't done it.
Yes, I met him 4 years ago. We had an event with all our Top Gun fans. It was absolutely amazing over at the Midway, and we went through all the different scenes of the movie, all the different spots of the movie. Yeah, it was quite a bucket list for me, for sure.
Yeah, and they weren't letting movies do that. They'd done An Officer and a Gentleman, and they'd kept them out. So a producer at the very top had been on that movie, and he knew that they really needed the Navy. So they worked very hard, hired a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., and done all kinds of things to get the Navy on board to begin with. But because there'd been real problems the last time they had a movie, somebody ended up court-martialed. I mean, it was a mess. Nobody in the Navy, nobody in the Navy wanted to participate in the movie. So basically what happened is somebody got assigned, and then they kept rolling it downhill because they would all have plausible deniability if something went wrong. There's no controlling Hollywood, and so there was a lot of fear that something could go wrong. So that's kind of how the whole thing gets set up for them to be on base where they shoot all that stuff, and then they get this time on the aircraft carrier, which is highly unusual. And remarkable. They actually went back and did reshoots too. So there's great stories from that aircraft carrier. They're all in the book. The most famous one, and this is both Bill Bottolato, but also Tony Scott, the director.
Yes.
It was the one thing people knew the behind the scenes, which is that after they were finished with their 5 days, and they had been kind of, he'd been sort of bossing the captain around in a sense, and then it came time for them to leave, and that captain, Tony was shooting. He loved to shoot in the sunlight, when it was either setting or rising. And there, all of a sudden, the ship starts to turn out of the money shot. So he says, "Turn it back." And
oh my God.
The captain's like, no. So he said it's expensive, and he was really mad, I think is what it was, after he was just over this movie crew. So Tony offers to pay him, and it was apparently a $10,000 check, because Bill said, no, we're already too close to the budget. So that did happen. That really did happen. The famous story. And in fact, they did turn back so he could get his shot, and it's in the movie.
So is there anything epic that you would like to talk about today on being a part of the set, like some great stories or just something people would really want to learn about?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we just stick with the aviation part of it, you have two things that happen in this movie that are very unusual. One is a guy named Clay Lacey, and he's got a business. Back then, nobody had ever seen a picture of an airplane flying through the sky. So you're just starting to see pictures of, airlines flying through. What was it called? Just whatever, American Airlines. Well, that's Clay Lacey was able to shoot out of his plane. So they hired him to get a lot of these shots, and they used him quite a bit. But there was a point where he charged so much, and they were starting to get great shots. That's where you have Heater Heatley, and you have these other folks.
Legend, they're just, sure.
Yeah. And so they're helping in the background, and they start getting these amazing shots. And so that's a key thing. But the other thing I really want to say something about Art Scholl. Art Scholl died making the movie.
Right there. Yes.
Oh my God, he was just an amazing talent. So as I was working on the book, I was going through all these old just clips, because he was in air shows all around the country. I mean, the guy was a fantastic talent. And so in the course of doing this book, I became convinced, and I make the case in the book, that whatever happened was not pilot error, because he'd done the move so many times before. But nonetheless, a major tragedy. And for everybody, it was a very hard day. And then one of the guys, maybe Bio Baranek, you might want to ask him next week, but I think he was in the room when Tony Scott, the director, had to call the widow, and just that he handled it really well. And Judy Scholl is amazing. She owned the business with Art, and I interviewed her as well. Just amazing people really throughout. And then the other thing I would say, one, Bottolato is an amazing talent. The movie does not get made without him.
100%, yes.
Yeah, but Tony Scott, the director, so that this is really important, because when it gets to the new movie, the Top Gun Maverick movie, Tony's all through that movie. These are directing decisions from the movie that came out in 1986 that directly appear, including actual footage from the movie. So try to think, like, what contemporary movie literally, as part of story process, telling the actual news story, uses footage from a previous movie. So I'm sure it's happened, but I wasn't able to find one. So they literally have a memory credit for Tony Scott in Maverick. And then the last thing I'll say, Lady Gaga performed the hit single for the new movie. And she also puts up a picture of both Tom Cruise and Tony Scott.
Well, I want to talk about two amazing gentlemen in both of our lives. And let's go to CJ Heater Heatley. Let's talk about him real quick.
Oh, he's amazing. I think, oh, are you going to put him on? No, I'm just supposed to tell you what I know.
No, Heater was on a couple days ago. Let's talk about the relationship you have with CJ, how that all transpired, and the story, because not everybody knows the story on how the movie was created. It's all because of CJ Heater Heatley and his love for aviation and photography.
Yeah, because he shoots the pictures that end up in the magazine that the two directors, when this is like highfalutin Hollywood stuff, they aren't directors, I'm sorry, they're producers. Jerry Bruckheimer is one of them. And they're literally in a dentist chair, they see Heater's pictures. So that is literally the concept. They don't have a script. They just know, like, we got to do a movie about fighter pilots. So yeah, so CJ's instrumental in that thing. But he also is pretty highly ranked relative to some of these other guys that are working on the movie from the Navy. And CJ strikes up a friendship, or I should say maybe the other way around. Tony Scott strikes up a friendship with Heater. Heater has him out to the house, and he looks at all these photos that he shot, and he literally gets them and uses them as props not props, but set decorating in some of the shots. And then Heater ends up being in all kinds of, he could have had like so many different kinds of credit. But my personal story with Heater is that, you know, a lot of people, and part of my job was to create a definitive book about how they made this movie, because there's so much stuff online. Actors who claim that they turned down the role of Maverick, and then all kinds of pilots or people that kind of just pop in to say, you know, oh, I did that, conflating when they really didn't. But Heater, poor Heater, by then I'd had enough of these people that I'm like, well, do you have any proof? You know, do you have any like proof of that? So I give him a lot of credit because, you know, I'm an annoying reporter that I want to make sure the documentation is good. And he really did. He didn't mind it. He just got me the stuff I needed. And then later I realized he's like this huge player, but yeah, he really was. He was a huge part of that behind the scenes making of the movie, no doubt. And Bio is another one too. Dave Baranek is another one.
Yeah, so radar intercept officer, people don't know, and Bio was his call sign. So yeah.
Yes. In fact, yeah. Let me find.
Hey. Yeah, okay.
Okay, let me push it back a little bit.
So we're about to close out your segment, and we have an amazing aviator here. So I'm going to go ahead and put you in the green room if you have anything you'd like to add before I get him on the show.
No, I think you have a great show. I'm glad to be here.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop you in the green room. And okay, so let's get this going here. All right.
Here you go.
All right, guys, we'll be on just 1 second.
I turned it on,
Yeah.
and it's aiming in her direction.
Okay.
Sir, pleasure to meet you. Thank you for your service.
What's your name?
My name is Cindy. Cindy Lee.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
I just met a gal outside here named Cindy, and she's a relative of mine.
Oh, it's a good name. It's a good name.
From
And we
South
have-
Dakota, yeah.
She'll be in the house. So let's talk aviation story. So let's talk all about your love for aviation. How did you get started? You were an F4 pilot, correct?
Amongst others.
Yeah, so let's talk all from the beginning and
Yeah.
how amazing your story is.
Well, I started out, I guess my interest was not led by the nose, but I was an eager little 4-year-old kid.
Let's get him in just a little bit.
Do you have a microphone? Because he's speaking.
Just the microphone on the computer. There you go.
Okay.
Let me-
Perfect.
I'm gonna try a little closer.
Okay.
You're the driver.
All right, watch your leg. We're going to come in right next to you.
Oh, that is perfect.
How about
Okay,
this?
that is great.
Cindy?
All right. Let me go ahead and put some of this on. So we have some of your background here. So we're going to do that real quick while you're talking. So let's talk story. Let's talk the history of how amazing you were as an aviator.
Yeah, I fell in love with aviation at an early age. I was privileged to take off and land safely, flying with my grandmother, who was 80 and I was 4, in a
Wow,
Ford
yeah.
Trimotor in a pasture in South Dakota. And that sort of started it. I have a brother who did much the same thing I did. He chose the Marine Corps, and when he retired at 30 years as a colonel, I was his numerical relief on Admiral McCain's staff. But much to everybody's surprise, I got to fly with him with me several times. I was flying Hellcats, and he was flying Corsairs, and he checked me
Oh,
out
wow.
in Corsairs.
It's amazing.
I checked him out in Bearcats. We flew together as an F8 Crusaders and F4 Phantoms and the whole thing.
Let's talk about the F4. What do you love about that beautiful airplane?
I had an amazing flight. I don't know if you're interested in it, but the F4 was used by military friends all around the world. And it had a nasty little, not characteristic, but on occasion did something wrong. And 16 airplanes worldwide had a double engine fire, and all of the crews on board ejected. So they never got one back to find out what was wrong with it. And what do you know? It happened to me. And I was on a flight to shoot down a missile target. And when I did it, I went into a big victory roll and came out and bang, bang, and the lights were flashing and noises. And I looked around and both engines were on fire. And I came back in the power hoping that would solve something, but it didn't. So I used my altitude to try and get close and hope land on the base. I didn't need my backseater. There was nothing he could do to help the situation. So I said to him, like, Don, I don't think I need, and he read my lips, which he couldn't see, but he was hoping to hear these words, eject. And so he did, and I stayed with it. And an amazing bit of luck, I was able to bring it back to the air base, and I came up on power. I used power for distance. I didn't get to where I wanted to be. I had to use airplane power with 2 engines on fire, and I didn't have much. I kept getting lower and lower, and so I had to have both engines on fire and had to go into afterburner in that sad condition, which is unbelievable.
Lord,
But I didn't jump out, and I did get the airplane back. So engineers, over a couple of months' time, figured out the problem, and we never had that issue ever again.
wow. So anything else you like to talk about? Some of the
Oh,
other
my.
planes that you flew? Let's get everybody excited about your aviation stories. Aviation is so crucial here on our show to share all these
I
stories.
saw UFO, but one thing that really happened, I was instructing with the Air Force at the Fighter Weapons School at Nellis Air Force Base,
Oh,
Las
yeah.
Vegas.
Yes.
And I had a wingman and no cadets or students at the time, so we were just flying around looking for somebody to jump and hassle, fight with. And we did, and we were at 44,000 feet, which is those airplanes in those times pretty high. And the oxygen tube connection to the airplane supply had separated, and I was just breathing cockpit air, which was not enough. And I said to my wingman, where did they go? And he said, they're right ahead of here. We had jumped them, and we had fought, and we were on their tail. We won. And I said, "But where are you?" "Right on your wing." I said, "What?" Registered. I'd been trained enough about oxygen. I realized I was passing out. So, for whatever reason, I needed more oxygen, and I pulled the emergency bottle that connects to the emergency bottle in the parachute system, and I passed out at 44,000 feet, and I'm just in dreaming and I came to at 18,000 feet.
Oh,
The airplane flying itself. Nice, I guess.
So let's talk about a day in the life of a pilot, a naval pilot. Let's talk about how your day starts. How does that go?
Well, if you are alert, no oxygen problem, and you have a problem, a lot of times it's obvious. It's not subtle. You are aware of it. And a lot of the situations you've been especially trained what to do if you can, and if it's something so bad that you can't, then you have a pretty good parachute system as the last resort. Jump out.
So do you get your orders 24 hours prior on what you're going to do for the next day, or how does that whole process
Oh
work?
yes, we have missions,
Mhm.
and we have a briefing before takeoff with all those involved in what the mission is going to be. Do this, do that. It may involve expending some weapon against the target. I'm talking about peacetime now because wartime it's a weapon against a target, which is the enemy. Um, and it depends on what you're carrying in the way of a weapon, which is designed to be effective against the enemy target. Uh, so, brief and go do what you have planned, and hope you don't get shot down.
Well, very good. I want to talk about a couple more things, and then we have to close out because I know you're on the schedule
Okay.
as well. So let's talk about the ready room.
The ready room? The ready room is a room designated and equipped to for you to perform your duties. And I'm thinking aboard an aircraft carrier because that's what Navy pilots do.
Yes.
Uh, it has comfortable seats, and it has a microphone. It has an area for the intelligence officer to take you aside and debrief about what happened on your mission. It has an area for diagrams and model airplanes, or use your hands to describe the maneuvers. Uh, and then it's close to an exit that leads to access to get onto the flight deck.
Yes.
So you will be alerted when they want you to get on the flight deck and in your aircraft and ready to go. So that's the takeoff end of it. Coming back, you have a landing signal officer or two that are trained to bring you safely to the ship and indicate through signals in the early days and now electronically lighting systems to tell you whether you are too high, too low, left or right, too fast, too slow. And so you're very conscious and very attentive
Yes.
to make every little correction so that when you come in fast to the ship, that you catch a wire and stop, disengage, and then take you out of the way so the next guy can do the same thing.
Well, this last question. Let's talk about how amazing your squadron was. So give some stories about that, and we'll close out today.
How many in the squadron?
Your squadron. Talk story about your squadron.
Squadron depends on the type of aircraft you have. And dreaming again, we're aboard ship. And the overall unit on there is called an air wing. And it's made up of maybe, well, now 3 or 4 types of aircraft. It used to be maybe as many as 5 or 6. But we have more versatile airplanes now, numerous types of missions. So we don't need so many types, but we have about the same number. And it goes on down to a squadron. And the squadron has a commanding officer who's the boss, and then those under him, and they have jobs besides flying because you have a squadron of personnel and you got to look after everybody. But basically, just as the pilot role, just flying itself, you have, depending on whether you have a one-seat airplane or multiple, but some have a pilot and a co-pilot and then a crew of maybe 4 people in behind them in the fuselage area of the ship
Wow.
to take care of radars and special equipment of all kinds.
So do you know my naval aviation story or naval story?
One an aviation story.
So my naval aviation story actually is when
Oh,
Top Gun came out that
Yeah.
same year.
Yeah.
I was working in Mare Island near San Francisco. It's about an hour
Yes,
from
I
San
know. I've been
Francisco.
there.
Yeah. On a nuclear submarine as a ship fitter. And that very same year, that's when I heard about the F-14 Tomcat. Is there anything you like to say about this beautiful plane, the F-14 Tomcat?
F-14. I was executive assistant and deputy CNO to Chief of Naval Operations for Air. And he was tasked by Mr. McNamara, Secretary of Defense,
Wow.
to accommodate his wishes and work in developing the F-111. So we would have one common airplane in all military services. And it had characteristics that we knew would not work for the Navy. But he knew that he couldn't confront the Secretary directly and fight him on this issue, or we would lose the whole thing. So he very cleverly went along with the program and went up to the Grumman headquarters and flew it and said nice things about it, like nice cockpit, roomy, good lighting, which isn't very significant. But all the time, hoping to get the part of testing on an aircraft carrier because we knew it was too big, clumsy, and whatnot to work. And so, to his desire, we did that, and it flunked. And even McNamara understood this airplane is not for the Navy. But he had his desk there. His name was Tom Connolly, and he opened it up and he took out the plans for the F-14, and that was the start of that. And it's named Cat, as the Grumman airplanes normally are. They named it Tomcat after Tom Connolly.
Woohoo! You hear that? Did you hear that, Meredith? Great
I
story.
say it
Great
again. I'm
story.
sorry. I actually had one of the pilots call me. Anyway, go ahead.
So tell them a little bit about your book, and then we do have to close out because he has to head out, and I'm actually going to be doing some interviews live here at the barbecue. So go ahead and tell them your story real quick, and we'll close out. We have 2 minutes.
Yep, Top Gun Memos. It's the definitive story of the making of Top Gun, which of course includes all the Navy pilots who flew to get the shots and make it possible. And I would tee up your listeners for Dave Baranek, who I think your bio Baranik's going to be on, I think, next week. He's an amazing guy. He's written some great some books, but he also was instrumental in helping with dialogue at the end of the, when all the footage was in. He had some great stories about going into the studio, for to help them, which is obviously pretty memorable. But yeah, you pilots, it's a special breed, isn't it?
It definitely is. And who do we have in the room? Let's close out with the co-owner of Kansas City
No, that's
Barbecue.
fine.
Yeah,
You're a great
thank you for
job.
the connection.
That's-
It's been really great.
I didn't even tell him about him, mate.
Got that last mission that he got his Medal of Honor for.
Yeah, let's close with that. Go and then tell your story.
You have time?
Yeah, let's go a few more minutes.
We'll
Yes.
make it shortened.
Of course.
We were fighting in the Korean War. I was the wing commander. No, yes. Oh, it's this Korean War. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm on an aircraft carrier, and we moved from our normal fighting position at the demarcation between North and South Korea to off the city, halfway up to Vladivostok, which is on the river Yalu that separates North Korea and Soviet Union, which it was at that time. And that was because we had targets that were so ripe that we should hit them, and they were too far away, so we couldn't hit them at our normal position. So in the stealth at night, we went on up off this city halfway named Chongjin. And I was on the first mission in the morning to strike targets at a city that had both industry, manufacturing, and warehousing of war materials, and struck the targets in good weather. And I went back to the carrier, and they told me, get ready, get lunch, get ready to take a combat air patrol mission on the next flight of the carrier. So we did. And we were in under clouds at 400 feet in a big blizzard. Four of us went on top, and we were advised on the way that there were inbound bogies, unknown aircraft. And when we went on top of the clouds at 12,000 feet, I could see the contrails of 7 airplanes headed from the north directly at us.
Wow.
And the flight leader at that time had a warning light and was directed with his wingman to go back and remain over the top of the task force. And I took command of it, immediately tested all my equipment, test fired my guns, radar, ranging sight, ready to go. And they said, that's my intercept. And as they passed over me at probably above 50,000 feet, and I was just climbing to intercept it, and probably never able to get that high. But on my way, they turned around, went back north, split into 2 groups of 4 and 3, went out of the cloud level. I lost sight of them. I thought they were going to go in and land, and I was instructed to come back and establish a barricade between the last sighting and the task force. And in that turn, here came 4 MiG in a loose formation, all shooting, and the fight was on. And I turned abruptly and ended up on the tail end, last guy in the formation, and in a short burst, he fell out of formation, smoking, and my wingman left me to follow him down. But it's now 1 airplane against 6 superior MiGs. And it went on, and to make a long story short, only 1 of them got back to the base. So I
Wow,
have
amazing.
the names of the guy that got back there, and I have the names of 4 of the people that were shot down.
Man.
And I got shot up. I got lucky to get back aboard the aircraft carrier in a very abnormal way because I was too fast and couldn't control the airplane enough. But miracles happened, and I got back aboard safely.
Wow, sir.
What a great story.
Thank you for coming home, sir. It's so amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to close out.
Mhm.
And thank you so much for tuning in to Bucket List Coach Web Show Live. So we're going to be here next week as well on the 23rd. And we have some amazing Top Gun royalty. So I hope to see you just on the other side. And take care. This is Cynthia, Bucket List Coach, Web Show Live.